Alright everyone, we start off today with a little announcement. I will not be doing my live stream today. In fact, I might not even do my second New Tech exclusive because archive.ph is having a little bit of a problem. The DNC is pretty much going as expected, which is to say hilarious. You had massive protests outside, which as predicted were just big enough. So you didn't have out-and-out chaos, just big enough so that most people that are talking about the DNC aren't talking about Kamala's rambling word salad, or, you know, Joe Biden mumble schmumble or something like that. They're not talking about the disruption inside of the convention hall. They're just talking about the protesters outside. I predicted that that would probably be the case. It sort of hits that sweet spot. That's what the Democrats wanted. They're actually happy right now about that. Fewer people talking about Kamala Harris attempting to buy Doritos the other day. We're going to get into that story because it's just, these people are loopy. There's something seriously wrong with them. Link in the description. Not archived, of course. It's just one of my posts referring to another person's post. With regards to it, there were significant protests outside of the DNC's sort of opening day, as predicted. Thousands of people showed up. I would say, I can't really estimate the crowd size, but it was significant. There were no major clashes, like Wendy's didn't burn down. So they hit that sweet spot where they don't really want people to look at what's happening inside the convention. They don't want them talking about how awkward Kamala is, how senile Biden is, how messed up Tim Walz is, because he clearly is. They don't want people thinking about that. They'd rather them focus outside of the venue. It's Hyde and Harris, basically. That's the whole strategy, to kick the Kasich effect down the road. By the way, Trump's still up in the battlegrounds map with no toss-ups. We'll be talking about that as well. This is a no black pill zone. That being said, it's still certainly something to talk about. It's not exactly 1968, but there is a significant element of dissent. And the Democrats don't want you to realize this. Here's the problem for them. This dissent is coming from people who generally would vote for the Democratic Party. This is mainly young left-wingers. So it's a real big problem when the party has taken up a line on an issue that a lot of them find very, very important. That and student loans, Biden doing nothing about that except for certain service workers, by the way. It pisses off people that you need to vote for you. And disproportionately, younger individuals are the ones, I mean, if you're activistic enough to take part in multi-day protests, you're the kind of person that the party wants to knock on doors. You know, you've got that youthful stamina and stuff, so you're like, oh, you know, knock on doors and stuff, we'll pay you a stipend and harvest some ballots, knock on doors, talk to people about our candidate. The Democrats' lifeblood for a long time has been the fact that the youth disproportionately supported their policies. That's begun to flip. It's no, Trump is the candidate of the young, ironically enough, the first Republican to accomplish that in quite some time, by the way. Disillusioned young leftoids. If you can't get them to vote for your platform, you're screwed. In certain, you're talking about millions and millions of votes potentially lost because of the inability of the Kamala Harris campaign and formerly Biden campaign to formulate an actionable policy on the issue. Meanwhile, your policy also pisses off right-leaning individuals. I mean, they're not inclined to vote Democrat, so it matters less. But they've been protesting the idea too. The Biden administration has been very, very bipolar on issues related to Israel v. Gaza. It has not taken up any significant, I mean, you've got Biden managing to piss off Bibi Netanyahu on one hand, to the point where he shrugs his shoulders and says, fuck off. But you've also pissed off the Palestinian people, and people who support, you know, liberate Palestine or free Gaza, maybe some of them are even pro-Hamas. You've pissed them off as well. You've got no allies on foreign policy. Kamala Harris, by the way, is effectively nothing more than an id poll-injected further left version of Joe Biden, with less likability and more insanity. She's crazier than Joe. Joe may have been senile, and clearly is, and he's sundowning. Kamala Harris is a psychopath and or sociopath. She's got psychotic tendencies. It's quite clear if you look at her actions and the fact that she can't buy a bag of Doritos without clearing out a store and filming it multiple times. Yeah, she failed to buy a bag of Doritos. Or that's more humorous news. We'll be talking about that in a moment. And the DNC is pretty much going as expected. Lackluster inside, occasional sporadic outbursts of protest activity in there that the legacy media largely doesn't want to talk about, and marches outside that get cast off as far left. Now, that's not wrong, but the problem is that the far left typically congeals under the Democratic umbrella. This would be like if you had, let's say, evangelicals got pissed at Trump. They determine that he's not a Bible believer or something like that. They think he's the Antichrist. And they start protesting outside the RNC. That would be front page news for weeks, wouldn't it? While it's not the largest conglomerate voting bloc that you have under your general coalition, it's an important one. Disproportionately in certain states, of course. It depends on the state demographics because that's how electors actually function. It's because of the vote in the state. It's not a national popular vote, thankfully. But it would be similar. It would also be a similar number of people. If 10,000 people waving crosses around and saying Donald Trump's not a real Christian had converged on the RNC, you know that Joy Reid would have nothing else to talk about for a week. But with the DNC protest, it's considered par for the course. It's just a small number of people. It's like there were a few hundred people protesting outside of the RNC in Milwaukee and having the anti-Trump signs and stuff like that. The GOP is evil, pro-choice and stuff like that. A conglomerate of people, a few hundred. It wasn't even 1,000. This was reported on as though it was meaningful. Well, there's significant pushback against Trump's evil orange policies. 10 times as many people at a bare minimum, again, I didn't do a head count myself, show up at the DNC. Slow news day, isn't it, guys? Meanwhile, they have no choice but to focus on it because they don't want to focus on Doritos at the moment. They don't want to show people. Nobody cares what's happening in the DNC either. It's a snooze fest. Like you had Hulk Hogan rip off his shirt at the RNC and stuff like that, Kid Rock and shit like that. At the DNC, it's like, oh, here's the local Girl Scouts. Tim Walz is going to give a thrilling half-hour speech. At the very least, he's more coherent than Kamala is. That being said, it's on the boring side. With Kamala, you actually want to listen to what she says because if you like linguistics like me, I do. I really like studying languages. It is often the case that you don't know what the fuck she's saying. It's literally the sound and the fury, and there are people that are actually taken in by this. Like her comments on democracy. Well, it's incredibly strong, but it's incredibly fragile. Now, I know the point that she's trying to make. She's just not capable of conveying it. That's definitely the highlight of recent politics, again, along with the now infamous Doritos incident, which I'm sure she's not going to get dragged for at all. But the DNC, I suspect, will continue to suffer protests. I don't expect it to be like anarchy in the streets or anything like that, although it could be wrong. There are multiple groups and more people are filtering in as we speak. So the crowds are growing. They're not diminishing. And so they might get the spectacle that they so much want. But it won't be because Kamala gave a speech. It won't be Tim Walz or anything like that. Or the stunning performance by probably Tay-Tay or something like that. That's going to be the people outside. That's what they're going to fixate on. That's about all. Peace out.